Hello, my name is Rachel Milioto, and today I'm here to give you some quick info on how to close read a poem for point of view. This can be really helpful in figuring out the meaning or message of a poem when it isn't immediately clear. Cough cough, Shakespeare. To make sure everyone is on the same page, the first thing I'll talk about is exactly what point of view is, and 4 types of literary points of view. Then I'm going to take you through a series of 3 steps that break down how to read for point of view in a poem, soliloquy, or play. First, an in-depth read of the piece using transition words and mood. Second, identify the point of view. What type of point of view is it? And third, apply the point of view to the work as a whole. How does the point of view contribute to the meaning of the piece? As a guide for you guys, I'll use Richard III's opening soliloquy. An important first step to teaching something is to make sure everyone knows what it is I'm trying to teach. So, point of view is basically the narrator's position on the story being told, in fictional writing. There are 4 main types of literary points of view. The first one is the objective point of view. In this point of view, the writer describes what is happening without making any inferences. They are a detached observer, not disclosing anything about the character's thoughts or emotions. The second point of view is first person. In this point of view, the narrator is one of the characters in the story, and relays all the happenings of the story to us via their perspective. The third point of view is third person omniscient. A third person omniscient narrator is an outside voice that does not participate in the action, but describes the feelings of the characters and knows everything, including the past and the future, about all the characters and all occurrences in the story. The fourth point of view is third person limited. A third person limited narrator is very similar to a third person omniscient narrator, but instead knows everything, including the past and present, of just one character. Now that we know what point of view is, we can move on to our process. Our first step in that process is to read the piece of literature in depth. If you are struggling to understand the poem, as is often the case with Shakespeare, seek out and underline transition words. This helps you break up longer poems into smaller groups, so that you can try to understand smaller portions individually and put their meaning together. I suggest physically marking up and drawing in lines to organize your small groups on the text in front of you. Within these smaller groups, look at and note the language. What words is the author using? Are there repeats? What is the overall tone of the words used by the speaker? What mood has reading this passage left you with? In the case of Richard III's opening soliloquy, both of the techniques I've just discussed can be applied to help you understand the meaning behind it. Without even reading the soliloquy, you can see a series of 5 transition words: now, and now, but, and therefore, which I've highlighted in yellow, that tell you the speaker is shifting from one topic of conversation to another. Dividing the poem up along these lines, you have 5 mini poems to read and understand. Applying the second technique I have suggested, you begin to see a pattern. By underlining and noting the language, particularly nouns and adjectives, it becomes apparent that the narrator is speaking of a series of people and things he identifies with winter, which I have underlined, against a series of people and things he identifies with summer, which I have highlighted in blue. Again, reading for transition words and mood are simple techniques that help a reader to pick apart the meaning of a poem or soliloquy. The second step is to identify the point of view. Look back to your given literary text, and notice there are linguistic indicators for each of the 4 points of view. For the objective point of view, look for a lot of he did and she did, or he said and she said, with nothing beyond description of concrete actions and details. If the narrator is using I to relay to the reader how he or she feels or thinks, then you know you are dealing with a first-person point of view. Linguistic indicators for the third-person omniscient or limited point of view can be the future tense. Third person is the only point of view that has concrete knowledge of the future. If you come across words such as will be or will happen, or refers to actions in the future, then you know you have a third-person narrator. The distinction between third-person omniscient and third-person limited is that a limited narrator will only speak about all events surrounding one character. Applying this to Richard III's opening soliloquy, I can read through the text and look for keywords I identified above. By the 8th line, I've seen the word hour, 5 times, but I know this soliloquy is spoken by a monarch. This means the use of our and many lines above might be easily explainable. Known as the royal we, it occurs when a single person of a high office or ranking, such as a king, uses a plural pronoun. But I'll keep reading for more keywords, and in the 14th, 16th, and 18th lines, I see the word I. Thus, both the we and the I indicate to me that this soliloquy is in first-person point of view. Alright, now that we've identified what the point of view is, we can move on to our third and final step, which is to apply the point of view to the work as a whole. Well, knowing the point of view helps us to understand the lens through which we are receiving information. If you've identified that you're working with a first-person point of view, for example, you know that your character is biased, so the information you're receiving is likely not objective truth. Looking at our example of Richard III's soliloquy, we can glean a lot of meaning that contributes to the play as a whole. Based on the list we made earlier, Richard III associates war, conquest, marches, alarums, horses, and himself, making special note of his deformity, with winter. He associates the Duke of York, victory, times of peace, merriness, and sex, with summer. He talks specifically of how his deformity prevents him from having sex, and resolves in the last line of the soliloquy to make life miserable for those who are able to enjoy the times of peace. Thus, we know this soliloquy is from the perspective of a deformed king who feels deprived. This is valuable information on the bias through which we are receiving all information, and can give us clues as to what the rest of the play might be about. We need to read the rest of the play to find out, in the case of Richard III's soliloquy, but either way, knowing the point of view helps us to glean meaning from a poem, soliloquy, or play. Alright, that's all the steps. For a quick review, they are, first, an in-depth read of the piece using transition words and mood, second, identify the point of view, and third, apply the point of view to the work as a whole. I hope you found this video at least semi-interesting, and that your reading skills are maybe a bit better because you watched it. Thanks! Bye!